The senator from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How you doing, Judge?
Great.
Good.
Thank you very much.
I walked by the Supreme Court the other day. I live nearby. And on that building, as many of us know, are the words "Justice, the Guardian of Liberty." Now, we live in cynical times, but I think those words are sacred to most Americans. And they really tell us everything we need to know about the importance of the United States Supreme Court, in my judgment. Without justice, without equal treatment by the law, liberty, which is why our country was founded, becomes an empty promise. So even though it's easy to look to elected officials, the president, Congress, governors, as the last protectors of liberty, we as Americans have entrusted that, I think we can all agree, to our Supreme Court. And that's why, in my judgment, this hearing is important. And that's why we need, if we can, to go beyond politics, beyond the person who lives in the White House, beyond whatever the issue of the day happens to be, and we need to try to truly understand our role in this process, which is to advise and consent. I hope we can focus on temperament, on legal philosophy, on legal reasoning, on qualifications, on experience. And for just a minute, I hope we can forget that we're all politicians here, you excluded, and focus instead on the judiciary and the role we get to play in affecting that most of American institutions, the United States Supreme Court. Now, I've had the opportunity to meet Judge Gorsuch and to read his work, and I like what I see. A former governor in my state once said of the then Attorney General, if you want to hide something from him, put it in a law book. You obviously don't have that problem. You appear to me to be exceptionally well qualified to be a Supreme Court justice. I was especially impressed with your doctorate of philosophy and law. That stuck out to me. A DPhil from Oxford is probably the most difficult terminal degree in the world. You also attended Columbia and Harvard, and they're satisfactory as well. I've read about 20 of your opinions. My favorite is A.M. v. Holmes. Your dissent was very short, 4 pages, but you packed a lot in those 4 pages. As far as I'm concerned, that dissent should be required reading in every law school. All I can say after reading those 20 opinions, some of which I agreed with, some of which I didn't, is that you write really, really well. Your opinions are engaging, whether you agree with them or not. Judge Gorsuch is direct, clear, concise, you're collegial, and you have a clean grasp of the law. There's no boilerplate language that lawyers often put in their briefs, and sometimes judges do as well. I also might add that another thing struck me about your opinions. You show concern for the parties. You use their names. You don't refer to the parties as appellants or appellees or respondents. You call them by their name, and I like that. Judge Gorsuch's respect for judicial independence and for precedent, in my judgment, is apparent in all of his opinions. He's an unyielding supporter of the separation of powers, and I believe that he genuinely understands and values the role of the judiciary as a check on both the legislative and executive branches. And that's very, very important to me. As are we all. I'm rather fond of the Constitution and the structure that it creates, separating powers so no branch of government can bully another or bully the American people. One of the main purposes of the United States Constitution, in my opinion, is to tell us when to stop, to reaffirm that the authority of the state over its people is limited and it is finite. Let me be blunt. I'm looking for a judge, not an ideologue. I don't want somebody on the United States Supreme Court who is blinded by ideology. I'm not interested in people who want to use the judiciary to advance their own personal policy goals, whether they are to the right or to the left. I want a judge to apply the law as it is, as best he understands it, not to try to reshape the law as he wishes it to be. I also want a person who's intellectually curious, who is earnest in his desire to rule fairly, and who is willing to really fight for his view of justice. I guess what I want is a cross between Socrates and Dirty Harry. And I believe you just might be that person. Let me say one final thing. I'm an officer of the court. None of the, as a lawyer, as are you, none of the questions that I'm going to ask you today are designed to trick you, as if I could. Nor are they designed to suggest that you should violate Canon 3A6 of the Code of Conduct for United States judges, which says a judge should not make public comment on the merits of a matter pending or impending in any court. Nor will my questions be designed to cause you to violate Rule 2.10a of the American Bar Association Model Code of Judicial Conduct, which, as you know, states, a judge shall not make any public comment, any public statement that might reasonably be expected to affect the outcome or impair the fairness of a matter pending or impending in a court. And finally, nor will my questions be designed to ask you to violate Rule 2.10b of the American Bar Association Model Code of Judicial Conduct, which states, a judge shall not, in connection with cases, controversies, or issues that are likely to come before the court, make pledges, promises, or commitments that are inconsistent with the impartial performance of the adjudicative duties of his judicial office. If you think any of my questions today or tomorrow or later this week cross those lines, I hope you'll speak up so we can talk about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.